Question 10. This model is shaded to represent one whole. It's shaded in one whole square. Danny drew a model that was shaded to represent 3.19. Which model could Danny have drawn? Okay, 3.19. And we had a question that was similar to this earlier, and I really love what Bailey said. So I asked her before, do we need to have a number in front of our fraction? It was a fraction at the time. Bailey said, yes, we need to have a 3 because there are 3 whole models shaded in. Just like with that fraction, if there is a 3 in front of my decimal, I need to have 3 whole models shaded in. So the first thing I'm going to do is get rid of any answer choice that does not have 3 whole models shaded in. I can get rid of answer choice F because even though they have 3 models, there is not a single model that is completely shaded in. I can get rid of F. I can also get rid of G. G they were trying to be tricky with. They do have 3 whole models shaded in. But look at what they did over here. They tried to hide another whole model that was shaded in. So they don't have 3 whole models shaded in. They have 4 whole models shaded in. Now H and J, they both have 3 whole models shaded in. So I can't get rid of either of those. Both of them start off just fine. 3 decimal decimal. Now I have to look at the last model. H shows me a tenth and then a few hundredths. So 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So after my decimal, I would put 15. H shows me a tenth and then some hundredths. I have 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. So between these two, which one shows me the correct number? Answer choice J. I will tell you guys, it's not a for sure thing. I can't tell you 100% of the time this works, but if they show you a model and it looks like this, where it's kind of broken up into separate pieces, that's usually not the answer you want. Again, I can't tell you 100% of the time for sure. But if I see an answer choice like this, it makes me nervous to pick it. It makes me very nervous and it makes me want to be sure that I am very careful when I count this one. Because if they're showing it to you separated like this, it's because they're trying to trick you. So if you see a model like this, be very, very careful with it. It's usually not your answer. Again, I can't tell you 100%, but usually there to trick. Number 11, which equation shows an equivalent decimal and fraction? All we have to do here is make sure that whatever decimals they're giving us, it's the same as the fraction. If I take a look at my answer choices, they're not all exactly the same, but they are pretty close. And one thing that every single one of them have in common is that there is a 19 in front of that decimal. If there is a 19 in front of that decimal, that means that I should have what in front of that fraction? There is a 19 in front of the decimal. What do I need to have in front of the fraction? Christopher, what should I have in front of the fraction? Okay, but what do you think, Christopher? If I have a 19 in front of my decimal, what do I need to have in front of that fraction? Okay, who can help Christopher out? If there is a 19 in front of my decimal, what do I need to have in front of my fraction? Kylie? 19. Whatever is in front of the decimal stays in front of the fraction. Whatever is in front of the fraction stays in front of the decimal. Whatever is in front stays in front. So, Christopher, if there's a 19 in front of the decimal, what should I have in front of the fraction? 19. Whatever number is there should be in front of the other one as well. So again, whatever's in front of the fraction stays in front of the decimal. Whatever's in front of the decimal stays in front of the fraction. 19 and 19. So no matter what fraction I have, there should be a 19 in front. There's a 19 in front. No 19. 19 in front. 19 in front. Okay. Here's where I have to do something a little bit different. I have two different decimals. I already got rid of answer choice B because they didn't have the 19 in front. Answer choice A, their decimal is 19.4. Answer choice C and D, their decimal is 19.04. So I have to check two different decimals. For answer choice A, 19.4. First thing, I know that, oh, yes, Violet. Okay. Very good, Violet. You're absolutely right. There's only one place value after my decimal, which means my denominator should be 10. But you're right, their denominator was 100. So A is wrong. If there's only one place value after the decimal, the denominator is 10. If there's two, like there is for 19.04, then my denominator would be 100, like you just said. So very good, Violet. I'm glad you noticed that. So I know there should be a 19 in front. I know there's two place values, so my denominator is 100. What should my numerator be? 19.04. Jaylene, what should my numerator be? What do you think, Jaylene? If the number after my decimal is 0.4, what should the numerator be? I think Jaylene is frozen. Well, who can help me then? Violet? 4. I don't have to put 0.4 as my numerator. If there's a 0 in front, I just put 4. So my fraction should be 19 and 4 out of 100. C has 19 and 4 out of n. D has 19, 4 out of 100. So answer choice D is my answer. So remember, 3 places to look. Number 1, look in front. Whatever is in front stays in front. Second, look at how many place values there are. If there's 1 place value, your denominator is 10. 2 place values, your denominator is 100. Last place to look, whatever number is after the decimal, that's your numerator. Number 12. A produce truck was loaded with 4,295 pounds of potatoes, 3,089 pounds of cucumbers, 1,721 pounds of carrots, and 3,468 pounds of tomatoes. Rounding to the nearest thousand, which shows the difference, the combined weight of potatoes and tomatoes loaded on the truck compared to the weight of the weight of the cucumbers loaded. Here's my question mark. I'm going to go backwards to find my question word. Which shows the difference. Remember, on a math problem, when they ask you for a difference, they're asking you to subtract. The difference of the combined weight of potatoes and tomatoes. Okay, so this says to combine means add. Combine the potatoes and tomatoes compared to the weight of the cucumbers. So they want me to put the potatoes with the tomatoes and then to subtract that from my cucumbers. Well, let's find the information I need. A produce truck was loaded with 4,295 pounds of potatoes. There's my potatoes. $3,089 pounds of cucumbers. So my cucumbers are 3,089. 1,721 pounds of carrots. Need carrots at all. Get rid of that. And 3,468 pounds of tomatoes. Tomatoes are 3,468. This one tells us to round to the nearest thousand. So they don't want us to just use these numbers, they want us to round them. Round to the thousandths place. What was that rhyme about rounding? Who remembers? Violet? Very good. 5 or more, add 1 more. 4 or less, let it rest. So Violet had told us that the rhyme for rounding was 5 or more, add 1 more. 4 or less, let it rest. We're going to use that to go ahead and round these numbers. They told us to round to the nearest thousand. I'm going to circle all of my thousands place. And then, like any time that you're rounding, you always look at the place value that's next door. Bless you, Violet. You always look at the place value next door. So in this case, that means I'm going to look at the hundreds place. So for my potatoes, if I look at the hundreds place, there's a 2. If I use that rhyme, 5 or more, add 1 more. 4 or less, let it rest. A 2 is one of those 4 or less numbers. So that means I'm going to let the 4 rest. But to make sure that I round it, every number after the 4 is going to turn to 0. For my cucumbers, same thing. I'm rounding to the thousands. So that means I need to check the next place value, the next door place value, and that's the hundreds. There's a 0. Again, if I use that rhyme, 5 or more, add 1 more. 4 or less, let it rest. 0 is on the 4 or less side. So I'm going to let the 3 rest, and all the place values after it turn to 0. Now I round this next one, my tomatoes. I'm rounding to my thousands place, which means I check the next door place value, which is my hundreds. We have a 4. 5 or more, add 1 more. 4 or less, let it rest. Right there in the name, in that second part of the rhyme. 4 or less, got a 4, which means I let the 3 rest. But since I'm rounding, every place value afterwards becomes 0. So these are my new numbers. For my potatoes, I have 4,000. For my cucumbers, I have 3,000. And for my tomatoes, I have 1,000. So let's see what we have to do now. I know I have to combine my potatoes with my tomatoes. So let's go ahead and start off with that. Potatoes and tomatoes. 4,000 plus 3,000. This is one of the reasons why people use rounding in their math, because once you round your numbers, they become a lot simpler for you to work with. Because there's so many zeros, there's not much work you have to do, especially when you're adding or subtracting. 0, 0, 0, and we have 4 plus 3 would give me 7. So my potatoes and tomatoes would be 7,000 pounds of potatoes and tomatoes. Then I know that I have to subtract the cucumbers. My cucumbers were 3,000. So let's do that. Subtract 3,000. And again, because they're rounded, the work is a lot simpler for me. 0 minus 0 is 0. And then I have 7 minus 3. 4. So my answer is 4,000. And if I check my answer choices, 7,000 would have been my combined total. This answer choice is there just in case we forgot that there was a second thing they asked us to do after the adding. 4,000 matches. 6,000. I could have got 6,000 if I added my cucumbers and my tomatoes. So if I added the wrong things, I could get 6,000. 3,000 is what I would have got if I just rounded my cucumbers and then stopped there. So the only one that matches is G, 4,000. Be very, very careful with math problems. A lot of the ones that we do might just have one step, but as we get further and further into our year, we're going to find more and more problems where you're going to need to do 2 steps or sometimes even more than 2 steps, like we did here. We had to do rounding, we had to add, and then we had to subtract. So don't just finish one step and then think, okay, I'm done. That's it. That's the entire problem. There's going to be a lot of problems that ask you to do and that you need to do more than one step on. So don't just finish one step and stop. Make sure that you read carefully to see if you need to do more or if that's really the end of your work.